were accosted by several Gardaí whilst beating the bower on with a straw hat on, and it didn't knock a steam out of you. So,
4 years of business studies in one sentence. One sentence.
please, Diarmuid, we'd like to hear that.
It depends how you count it.
So you're on your 6th or 7th booster now, Diarmuid, are you?
No, I didn't. But I did get tested twice.
Do you regret that?
I do, actually. Second richest country in the world.
Yes.
Yes, for a number of years. And then one day, we woke up, and no, we weren't the second richest country after all.
Do you know what I mean? This mimics a tinfoil hat, basically.
Indeed.
Yeah,
And-
yeah,
and-
yeah. Okay, fair enough.
And the interesting thing about the tinfoil hat is...
I don't know, as I says, I don't admire what's happening in Palestine, but I'm not so silly to think.
Coming up in today's show,
that, you know, they can't go outside the front door without someone getting into their face and saying, what about the LED street lights? What about the mobile phone masts? What about all the dodgy refugees? Come on, politicians, sort it out. I'm not happy. Ring the Dáil, 01618 3333. Ring them, you got a problem.
not all superheroes wear capes. Some wear wellies. Wellies.
Diarmuid, I want you to tell people, why are you known as the Straw Man? Because it's a savage story, but there'll be a lot of people maybe not from the northwest who mightn't be familiar with it.
Well, I suppose the mummer or the straw man or the wren boy would be an ancient tradition. You get your straw hat. I didn't bring one with me, but put a straw hat on. You have a straw skirt. You can do a straw shirt. You can get little straw things for your arms. I use rushes a lot of the time, actually.
Yeah.
Easier to find here. So it is a ancient tradition of dressing up, and there is a crowd in Fermanagh. They have I think they call it the Mummers Museum, and I went up to him once. I was doing a gig a couple of years ago at some music thing, and I said to him, "What do you do?" And he said, "Fuck with people's heads." Okay.
Is it still open, is it?
I think so. I haven't been to it, but he's a gas character. And it was basically a bit of a laugh. You know, I met a lady in Carrick and Shannon, and she said when she was married, at the wedding, they had them. And, you know, you have a bit of a laugh. What I was doing at the music festival was I would follow people without them knowing. So a group was walking across the grass, and I sneak in behind them, and I'm following them and imitating them, and other people are laughing, and eventually they turn around and go, oh. But it's with the COVID thing, one of the things that people said was the mask is a ritual, yeah?
Yes.
And apparently it's common in religions and whatever, and so the mask is kind of it's a piss take. You know, I started it really during the COVID. We had a anti-COVID gathering, I think in the first year of it, down by the river there in Sligo, and I got a bundle of rushes, tied them at the top, and just put it over your head like that. So very simple, one tie, and it sits on your head, and it kind of splays out like that, and off you go. And then I got a little bit more elaborate. It's an interesting thing when you cover your face, because you're hiding, no one's quite sure. They think it's you, but they don't know. You know,
Yeah.
They can't see your face. It's quite a big deal, covering your face, putting the mask on, and I feel when I put it on, I feel okay. This is a performance.
I think that's a big part of it, because all throughout the centuries there's been groups who have donned masks and all the rest of it, but the unfortunate aspect is 70-80% of the time it's not for a good reason. and you take the terrorism, Ku Klux Klan, Masonry, Satanism,
COVID.
yeah. There's there's an aspect to it too, which is the fun aspect, which is the jester or the clown, but
Yes.
you have to look at it from a historical context, and a lot of the time, the face covering is bad news.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
destructive, it's manipulative,
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
all of these things, One of the things that I heard this about you, but you can confirm if it's true or not. I heard you went to the Flacule and donned the full straw man attire, and all you were doing was beating your drum and asking questions, and for that you were arrested. Is that true or false?
I was specifically campaigning against mobile phones, and I had my sign as Gaeilge, Cur the phone, suas the hone. Put your phone up your arse. In Gaeilge. a picture of a backside and so on. And very enjoyable, very good response. A couple of people not so keen. A couple of people. And very funny. One person complained, and next thing you know, there's 6 cops. 6 cops in a van. Oh, does it really take 6 cops to tie me down? Not at all. 2 would be plenty. But it's quite flattering.
You reckon you give one bother as the man?
But it's quite flattering that they go,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
McConville's in town, we need 6.
Yeah.
Make some big guys in there as well. They asked me my name, and I said, "What's your name?"
Yes.
And they weren't too keen on that, but then I gave them my name. And before they put me in the van, I'd given my name 3 times to 3 separate cops. They'd forgotten that the other guy had already asked me my name. So, what's your name? I told you already, but I'll give it again. I asked, was I under arrest? They said, no, we're detaining you. No, what's the difference between being under arrest and being detained? So they usher me into the van. I say, well, I think this is unfair, but I'm going with you. I didn't resist. They drive me down to the cop shop. After a half an hour discussion, I explain, this is what I'm doing, and la. They released me. No problem. Free to go. Innocent man. No problem whatsoever. Off you go. A year later, there's a summons. So they're after telling me, there's no problem. You've committed no crime. We're not prosecuting you. But a year later, there's a summons. And refusing to give your name. I gave it 3 times before they arrested me and another 3 times afterwards. So, if I didn't give my name, how come they know my name to send me the summons? So that's nonsense. Then they said, resisting arrest. I did not resist arrest at all, but that's what they said. And the first charge then was breach of the peace. So basically, I felt it was a vexatious and frivolous thing, and they wanted to tie me up in court time, so I didn't turn up. And they don't like that. And then there was a bench warrant, and then I noticed some posters put up by Sinn Féin candidate Martin Kenny and who's that Fine Gael guy? He was Junior Minister for Public Health at the
Frankie
time of
Fine.
COVID. Yes, the godfather of COVID, Frankie Fine himself. And I felt they were illegal posters, illegally placed without permission. So I carried out some modifications to them. And,
No, stop there now.
But-
no, you didn't. You didn't, Diarmuid. You're all right. That never happened.
What
The court case is over now, yeah?
You're not in the witness box here. Stop now.
Wait. What I'm being charged with is very important point. Criminal damage, without lawful excuse. So, if you've got a lawful excuse, it's okay.
Yeah, but you didn't do it.
But I have a lawful excuse if I did do it. And
You're
I'm
not
happy.
You're not picking up on me here now.
January, come and see it played out in court, folks. Best day's entertainment ever.
What day in January? 8th.
I have to check, actually. I think it's more the 20th, kind of the end of the month. But good point. I better check and make sure I turn up.
I could have seen you there if we were in on the 8th. Could have?
Yeah. So, yeah, that was... but anyway, so that's the reason when they wrongly decided to arrest me for the poster thing, that the computer flipped up. Oh, and by the way, there's a bench warrant. So, then Castlereagh...
For resisting arrest without being arrested.
Yes.
You know, I mean...
For not giving my name when I gave it.
It is comical.
And for breaching the peace, for playing a drum in the flag. Come on, guys.
Yeah, but you see, there is a more serious point here that, you know, we're getting to a pitch here where, you know, harmless misdemeanors are being treated very seriously, you know, and, you know...
Being kept in the bag, you know, just to be kept for... You were obviously doing something since
He was
then.
outside my court case.
Yeah, sure. Was I not there? I know.
Like, you can tell them that part. He was below at my court case on the Bowron and causing a great scene. It was great fun. And then all of a sudden it was, yeah, you were coming with us.
The interesting thing is, I've done must be 60 or 70 snare drum and straw hat performances, shall we say, on the street.
Yes.
And that is the only time, the time in Mullingar, it was the only time they picked me up and arrested me, detained me, the only time. So I have a great tip for anyone involved in peaceful, legal street performances, protests. And I picked it up from Cranky Frankie from Derry.
Okay.
Great guy, little bit on the cranky side, but heart's in the right place. And he would have done a lot of protests in Derry and whatnot over different things. And his tip was, as soon as the cops rock up, you say to them, would you like me to move on? And they say, yes. And you go, that's fine, I'll move on. Thank you. Off you go. And from the cops' point of view, the only reason they're there is because the sergeant said to them, go and fucking...
Move that guy on.
Move that guy on. They're quite happy, generally. As a general rule, they've no problem. You know, you're not robbing anyone. You're not causing anyone any hassle, really. So they've no problem with you. One funny incident was the cop asked me to move on from one place, which I did. But then I went outside a certain Sligo solicitors and spent an hour outside calling them all the names under the sun. Now, I know we're a little bit freer on this channel, but I'd prefer not to repeat those names because it's, you know, punchy stuff, no holds barred. And it's interesting that in certain circumstances, you can say anything.
Yeah.
You can say anything. And I think it's when you're very close to the bone, you're talking about real controversial topics, that a lot of the time for the guys who are involved in whatever bad stuff they're involved in,
Yes.
the simplest option, the smoothest option is just to ignore you.
That's right.
Just totally ignore you. There's a guy outside the office accusing you of murder and drug dealing and all the rest of it. What do we do, boss? Ignore him. He'll be gone in half an hour. And that's true.
Yeah.
I've only got half an hour anyway. So
Yeah.
if they arrest you and blah, 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 well, I'll be in court.
Yes.
I'll be repeating all the allegations that I made in the street in front of the court, in front of everyone.
Well, you see, this is a very important point because a lot of people aren't aware of it or that, but if you're right, no one brings you to court.
Interesting, isn't it?
Well, you see, most people don't understand that. You know, it's like I was talking to a local down here in Dermore West one night, and he said, you know, all the things you said during the election, were they true? And I said, have I been taken for a defamation case? And he says, no. Well, I says, would that not tell you? You know, that's my way of looking at it. If you hear, and you see, it's a strange thing. It's the character like you or me who is the court jester. Now, this was the position years ago. It was the bearer of truth. But you kept the persona of being a funny guy, you know, ha ha ha, all the rest of it.
It's only a joke.
It's a joke. But without the truth bringer, society is over. Sorry, we had a technical glitch there. Or Darren edited the fuck out of it. To make your own mind up.
No matter what Patreon is like, you couldn't have put that up.
You should have heard the last 20 minutes. Oh my God. No, we're on about the court jester and, you know, the truth bringer and all that. And the one thing that I would say to a lot of people to identify is, if you have someone who says something about a large company or a very important person and is left alone, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. I have been brought up before Sligo Court 5 times for an incident that I recorded, and it hasn't been directed by the DPP yet. This will be my 6th occasion in January without direction. So you tell me anyone who said something happened and the DPP can't make their mind up despite the fact that it was recorded. And I said what I was going to do. I've been questioned. I was asked, is that you? And the first time in my life, because every other occasion it was respectfully no comment. Respectfully no comment until it went to court. You give your solicitor every option in the world to do it. I was asked on this, is that you? Yeah, that's me. So you done this, that and the other. Yeah. And now everyone's left in a position wondering, well, what's going on with that? Why hasn't there been anything about that? Well, I'm afraid there has been things about that. I have attended the court 5 times.
But for some reason,
they can't figure it out. And why can't they figure it out? Because perhaps I'm on to something. And that's, you know, that's all there's to it.
I had an incident many years ago, and I'd been researching government involvement in the illegal drugs trade. And, you know, there's quite a few books about it. Alfred McCoy wrote a book, The Politics of Heroin, CIA Complicity in the Global Drugs Trade. Yeah. And we all know the damage the old heroin does and so on and so forth. And I went into the drug squad in Sligo and I said, is it my duty, if I know of people bringing illegal drugs into the country, to tell you about it? And the guy smiled and he said, you're speaking my language. I gave him a 12-page document.
On the CIA.
No. Snippets of public information. So I don't have any secret knowledge or insider stuff. Just stuff that's appeared. For example, years ago, there was a former president of Mexico, Carlos Salinas de Gortari. Mm-hmm. Very rich guy, and when he was president of Mexico, the allegations was, as well as all his normal money he was getting as president, himself and the brother had a wee major drug dealing thing going on, and when his presidential term was up, there was a big scandal, and he had to leave because of the drug dealing and the murder and the whole thing. And now the world's a big place, so where does the ex-Mexican president accused of drug dealing flee to when Mexico is too hot for him?
Ireland.
Little old Ireland. Yeah. Flicking between Ireland and Cuba. But is that a goose?
I have 3 turkeys and a goose who are on very thin ice at the moment.
Oh, yes. Anyway, touchy subject. So anyway...
They're looking well, though. I was looking at them. Since they went into the shade now, they've come on.
Yeah. There's a fair breadth there developing, so there is, yeah.
So this guy is hiding out in Ireland.
That's right.
And he's wanted for all this other stuff. So that was one incident. And there's a whole series of other incidents. I can't remember them all now. But if you look at the short stories in the newspaper, there'll only be a line or two. And there could be a whole book in that. But it's kept really quiet. You only hear about it once, and then it's never spoken of again. So anyway, I presented maybe 20 or 30 different incidents in this little document. And after the first couple of lines, it hit him. It wasn't what he was expecting, because I'm talking about judges being involved in the drugs trade, politicians, senior members of the Gardaí, etc., etc. And I thought he was going to hit me. I thought he was going to put down the paper and go bang. But he didn't. Fair play. Read through the whole thing and said, well, thank you very much for that, and, you know, we'll be in touch. So we shook hands, and that was grand. And then I was on the Joe Duffy show, talking about legalising the old marijuana, and I didn't know it, but he brought in a junior minister for drugs, I think one of the Aherns, so an actual TD responsible for the drugs thing, and I attack him. I say, you boys are bringing drugs into the country. And I said, will you investigate the drugs coming into Baldonnel Airport? And I put it to him a couple of times, and he did. He said, yes, we'll investigate it. He didn't, but I did a copy of my allegations and sent it to the minister. And I also said at the end, I'm a broad-minded guy. If you guys want to continue bringing in all the heroin and the cocaine and all that, you know, I can't really stop it. Just leave me alone to grow my medicinal cannabis in peace. That's a fair deal. No problem. So I've told the authorities twice. They haven't harassed me. They haven't taken any action. Then I possibly stepped over the line. I said,
stop admitting shit.
Stop.
For your own benefit, please.
Stop. Statute of limitations. So
just so you know, this does go out. Yeah, we have a viewership. Contest. Like, I am curious as to even like why your energy to bring this to them. What drives you? Well, why not just sit at home and grow your cannabis, like, and keep quiet? And, yeah, you know.
I saw it. I saw it in Dublin, not too directly, but close enough. You see people getting destroyed with it, and
yeah, but you're on the heroin. You're on the heroin end of it there.
Well, the criticism, yeah.
No, but that's what.
Disruption, yeah. I mean, when you got a cycling through Dublin back in the 90s, and there's a 10-year-old kid trying to sell you heroin. You know, hang on, there's something wrong here. This is not right. So, you know, I could see the damage it was doing. But then the line I stepped over was, I go, hang on, I've been writing articles about the CIA and whatnot and accusing them of this, that and the other. I should put the accusation to them. It's only fair. So I rang up the American embassy, and lovely, polite lady took my question. Oh yes, we'll pass that on to them, and, you know, get back to you. So that's when the drug squad turned up. 6 cops, boom, took me medicinal cannabis plants, and comes to a court case. And a bit similar to yourself, it was up, I think 3 times or maybe 4 times. And it was new to the whole court thing, and it was nervous. And you know this thing, they bring you in, and then you're waiting hours. Then your case comes up, and they go, oh, yeah, we'll postpone it till next month. And same fucking palaver again, next month, in and out, and da. And then the sergeant, I won't name him, nice guy, retired now, met him the other day. He sidled up to me just before the court hearing, and he says, listen now, Dermot, we'll give you a deal. Here's the deal. You plead guilty. Don't mention any of that government drug smuggling stuff. And no jail time, no fine. True, you'll have the conviction, but no jail time, no fine. walk out of here, free man, court case is over. And possibly foolishly, I agreed to that. Now, when I say foolishly or possibly foolishly, the danger would be you go in, you plead guilty, and the judge goes, 6 years. But the sergeant said I would, they could easily rat on you. But they didn't, in fairness. So that was that. So it's interesting that the supposed crime of the cultivation thing for similar quantities, mates of mine did 3 and 4 years inside for the same quantity.
Yeah, but what you'll find, your mates weren't in a position where they could open an enormous can of worms.
Exactly. That's the only difference was, I've got this big can of worms. Do you want me talking about it in court? Not really. No, having said that, it would be easy enough for them to manage it. Even if I did go in and name all these people, they've pretty tight control over the journalists. They've pretty, they could let you say all this stuff in court and not a word would get out. If they wanted to go that way. So it was an interesting experience in that.
It shows you how the courts really work. I mean, a retired surgeon cycled up to you.
Well, he was working at the time.
He was working at the time, right? Yeah.
But, they can't really do that. That's unacceptable. Funny, I met him the other day during the election canvass, and he's retired from the Gardaí, and he looks younger. And he's gone a bit spiritual. He was when he was in the Guards, he was a bit of a wide boy, you might say, not necessarily the straightest of characters. That would just be my impression. But since leaving the Guards, he's gone, not a holy Joe, but he just seems a more honest type of guy.
Yeah.
And physically looks younger,
You see, I think this is where the general public loses track. It's an entirely corrupted system. And you see, truth of the matter, I've said it once, I'll say it again, the commodity is dirt. The commodity isn't money. The commodity is dirt. If you have enough dirt, you're left alone. And if you're going to cause a palaver, you're left alone.
Well, yes and no. I mean, one option is they leave you alone, and the other option is they arrange a fucking accident. That's another way of
well, you see, the whole accident thing that's in it is they arranged the accident if it wouldn't be believed that the accident was in some way controversial. Do you understand what I mean by that?
It's just it looks like a normal accident.
If the accident, well, it's not even that. If you have, you see, this is where a lot of fellas, they don't. I've spoken to some serious enough people over the years, and they'll all talk about the grey man and the grey man and be the grey man and all that. But the truth of the matter is, the grey man gets shot, and nobody knew who the fuck he was. Do you understand, man?
I think so.
And that's the truth. My thing with it, and I draw the line, is years ago there was a little code of honour. And the code of honour was, you don't touch guns, you don't touch drugs, and you don't touch people. You don't traffic them. Any of those three things, you stay away from it. And now the state and all those is complicit in each and every one of those things. And then you're on a highway to self-destruction when you get to that stage. You're on a highway to self-destruction when you get to that stage. Like what you're drawing attention to, and I heard you on the radio myself and all that, a question was put to you on Ocean FM and you just turned around and went, no, I want to know about the kids that are missing. I want to know about it. How did we go from a nation where if one child went missing, it was on the RT news, to now a position where hundreds of children are missing at the same time, and no one is speaking about it.
Well, not quite nobody. I'm not a fan of thejournal.ie, but they have printed one article or possibly two about the missing children. Now, they are minimising it. They've put a figure of 60 on it, and they're, trying to minimise it overall, but they have said it.
But 60, I don't believe that's true for a second.
Yeah.
But 60 is huge.
Of course. One child is huge, and 60 is huge. There is a group in UCD, Feminist Academics, Sexual Exploitation Research Unit, or something like that, and they've done a report on this issue, and they say that with the refugee children, there are occasions where by the time the child gets to the state home that's looking after them, within minutes,
Yes.
the foreign gangs, now there's plenty of Irish bastards at it as well, but there are foreigners as well, they know.
Yes.
They know within minutes. So you've got a fairly organised sort of thing going on there. So there is some talk about it, but it's very limited and very minimal compared to what it should be.
But you see, what annoys me about it is, right, there is a class of man in this country who I would have rated as good, honest criminals,
Ordinary, decent criminals.
who are turning a blind eye to this. That's my perspective of it. See, I was always of the opinion that if you were a bank or an insurance company, you were fair game.
Robin Hood.
That was my opinion.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of people, good people, and they're not highlighting this, and they have the authority and they have the ability to put an end to it. But there's some very important people who are involved in this, and they're turning a blind eye to it, and I think that's scandalous. I think that's absolutely scandalous.
It's fair, I suppose, if you're if you're dealing with very powerful, very rich people, very ruthless people, it's understandable that you wouldn't want to.
Yeah, but you see, the power and the ruthlessness and all is they have enough money to pay men who will do something to do it. What a lot of them men, and I've said this over the years, never realised it, the man who'll do it holds the power. And if they could just figure out that this little higher echelon that has a few pounds, if they turn around to them one day and go, you're a fucking pedo and I'm going to take you out of it.
Yes, that's what we need.
I think that's very close. And I think one of the reasons that they're so inclined with myself is to make all things go away and all the rest of it, because I was being questioned, and the detective says to me, "You're not concerned about prison." I says, "I'm not, because I'm going to recruit." And he fucking looked at me as if I had said the horrible thing that you're not meant to say. You're not meant to say that. Ooh. You see, the truth of the matter is, and we can talk a good game and all the rest of it and this, that and the other, but there are people who are willing to do something and they're not on Main Street.
Yeah, it's exactly how to do it, and it's I suppose I had an old guy come up to me at one point in the street, and I was specifically talking about the migration problem, and he wanted to know what he could do. And all I could say to him was, every shoulder to the wheel. Everyone's got their different skills, everyone's got their different backgrounds, different contacts, and if everyone does or even if a lot of people or some people do whatever they can, then, you know, we should be able to bring this forward. But I would say there's a case come up. Can we name names? It's in front of the court, so it's public information. So there was a Fine Gael former councillor, Dr. Bill.
No, leave it.
David. Yes.
I'll tell you why, because it's very likely you'll be convicted. So say fuck all.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is a free speech platform, all the rest of it, but leave that one alone, because that's...
I'll say something without naming. There is someone charged with these kind of offences, but it's entirely possible that he's not guilty. It's entirely possible. And what we're talking about is so grim and so horrible that the same people who are doing it, the high-level people, they're quite capable of putting a false accusation against someone and going, oh, you did it. They're doing it themselves. The guy they're accusing of doing it didn't do it, but they want to get rid of him. And it's, you know, it's a way to destroy people who are...
Yeah, but it's entirely possible too that he sings like a canary and he brings down a good few others.
It's possible. It's possible, yeah.
And that's why I'm saying to you...
Yeah. There's no point in upsetting things, but it's...
We're in a situation at the moment where the Gardaí in this country are being stifled in investigating what's actually going on and being promoted for investigating farcical nonsense.
Yes. Yeah, and I found myself with the rank and file, they're pretty decent on the whole. Now, they'd follow orders, even stupid orders, but as a general rule, they're fairly decent, and they don't like the bad stuff that's going on.
Not at all. The best description I ever heard of it was he was involved with the Italian mafia in America. And he said, and I thought that's a good description of things. He says he was being questioned one time, you know, thoroughly about a case or that. And this young lad says, you know, what's the deal with the cops or that? And he says, listen, we do our job, they do our job. We do our job, they do their job. All that we can ask is that they don't plant something on you and do you for a crime you never committed. That's all you can ask. But we're in a situation at the moment where higher echelons are actively encouraging these people, these rank and file Gardaí, to ignore the bigger crime and instead of that follow someone who's out of tax, follow someone who, you know, absolutely meaningless crap. You know, I watch it every week. I see it in the newspapers and that meaningless cases.
Yeah.
You know,
stuff that should be settled with an apology and a...
Some young fella that drank too much and walked down the street and had urinated against a post or something.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely meaningless stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that the guard could have gone, listen, mate.
Yeah.
Don't do that again. That's nonsense. Don't do that again. I could arrest you. I could bring you to court. We could have a big palaver about this. But just don't be a moron. Do you know?
See, the old guard...
done that.
They had the freedom of discretion, you know, and it was taught to them as part of their training. So, like, they could take a situation and circumstances and the whole thing, come up with their own conclusion, use their own discretion and tell you, get the fuck home, you know. Whereas I don't think the cops coming up now actually are even aware that they have discretion.
Well, I'll tell you a prime example of that. My father told me this story, and I always thought, you know something, that's when policing was actually working in this country. Years ago, poaching making around here was, you know, prevalent.
Do
Still prevalent. But anyways, there was an old man, and he's dead now, so I can mention his name. He's not going to get in any trouble. His name was Tom Sheridan. He lived down in Ballinahona, and he had a cow that went down after calving, which can happen, you know, hard calving. And, of course, veterinary assistance was scarce enough at the time, so they thought the best thing to do was to comfort this cow with a drop of poaching. And then the bottle went round, and the crack and the merriment was going well. So one neighbour arrived after another until there was a couple of men in the shed looking at this cow. They couldn't get up, and they'd put a rope under her and try and lift her and all the rest of it. And everyone was very merry. And then there came a knock on the door. And they opened the door. And it was the policeman from Eastkey. And he came in, and he knew well what was going on. He knew. And one of the men was brave enough to go, "Do you think that cow will get up?" And the reply was, "It's my opinion that that cow might soon dance." And that's when there was community policing, you know. He didn't make a big deal of it. He headed on along his way. He just let them know that his presence was there. Yeah. That was the height of it, you know.
There was a case from the 50s. They wanted to reduce the number of Gardaí, and they sent a commission out, and there was all these areas with lots of Gardaí out the country and no crime. And they came into one place, 6 cops in the station. There wasn't a crime all year. And the commissioner or whatever says, "But sure, there's no crime here. Why do we need you here at all?" And the cop says, "But sure, if we weren't here,
there would be crime.
You'd need us." Yeah. And that thing of, the presence. Just, you know, there's someone who, if he sees something going out of line, will have the quiet words and maybe a stern word, and that's it. Cop yourself on. And a lot of the time, that's enough. You know?
It is enough, and that's the way it used to be. Like, I remember I used to be good with a few guards, and still am, in fairness. And, presence was key. You know, the reason the Garda car was outside the nightclub at 1 o'clock in the morning, that was enough for everyone just to walk away from the fucking premises and nothing happened. You know, if there was no cop car there, I mean, there's quite possibly going to be agitation or whatever else, you know, but it was simply the presence, you know, that made sure that everyone dispersed correctly. Look, I mean, there's definitely a requirement in that regard for police presence and that kind of thing, I do believe. I think it's definitely the higher powers that has them off doing silly stuff a lot of the time. And I do think the new recruits coming through at the minute certainly are not of the same caliber or training or anything else as what we are used to as guards.
You see, there's a trouble with that as well, though, that, you know, at one time it was looked at as a really admirable position. And I don't think that's the case anymore. Do you know? That's unfortunate, really, because it is an admirable position. And it's a funny thing. I was talking to a lad one day, and he'd be a fairly considerable figure in Ireland, and we were on about cards and that, and he says, he was a criminal. He goes, but what would the place look like without them? And I thought, well, if he can realise that, it's a fairly philosophical point, so it is, that's my thing with it. We have to move on. We have to move on from that subject now to something else for a bit of variety for everyone and all that. Your election. You're after running in the election. How did you find it? What do you think was achieved?
I think achieved, I managed to say some things,
Yeah,
both publicly on the street,
and door to door.
no door to door actually, or almost none, just on the street with the snare drum. I got a good few leaflets out from a few shop locations in Leitrim area, and it's a very controversial leaflet. You can find it online, irishelectionliterature.com, James McConville. Very punchy, very to the point, against mass migration, big tech badness, and EU lunacy. So I'm saying things
And which is so fair.
I'm saying things which strike a chord with a lot of people, you know. But what I found interesting was that close to 800 leaflets were taken voluntarily. So they're sitting on the counter in public. People know before they pick it up, oh, that's that crazy guy. But they picked up the leaflets. Yeah. So it's good that, you know, people can read that and go, oh, you're allowed to say that kind of stuff. And they haven't killed me yet so far. So, you know, that's good.
It's mad how you say you're allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Well,
But
yeah.
that's exactly what we keep saying. People feel that they can't.
But Diarmuid, I'm not.
But they can. They can in certain circumstances.
Is it the general election you ran in?
Yeah.
The local and the general.
Yeah.
Now, one mystery to me is I got a very low vote in the locals, 66 votes in two areas, but I got 2 votes less in the general election, even though there was a bigger area. And I...
Check RIP.
Yeah, there's a good chance to die, dear. Things at the moment is not good.
Touch wood. But the chance to participate in the debate on radio, I think, reached...
You were immense.
10,000 people, I'd say, something like that. And also in the Shannon side, did a little debate down there. And that was interesting. It was the most unpleasant part of the whole campaign was being in the same room as some of the politicians. And, you know, before you actually go on air, you're in the room, and some of them are not too bad.
Yeah.
But some of them are evil bastards, you know, not to put too fine a point on it.
Yeah.
And it's a bit socially awkward being in a room with people you know are evil bastards. But, you know, that was the worst part. So I think by me saying certain things, that helps other people, I think, be able to say it, feel a bit freer, I think. Now, the issue of how honest the elections are,
Yeah.
and it's true, I don't have any proof of election rigging, but certainly some suspicious things happened. So at the polling station in Killinummery in North Leitrim, I was in the morning, cast my vote, and I said to them, I'll be back in the evening to see the handover. I thought they handed them over to the guards, not true, and there was no problem. Oh yes, see you then. So 10 o'clock at night, I'm back at the polling station, and the presiding officer closes up, says goodbye to the polling clerk, who goes off in her car, and then she takes the precious box of precious ballots, puts it into her own private car. I say, oh, are you going to the Clayton Hotel, which is where they were being counted? She didn't reply, and she zoomed off at high speed, certainly breaching the 50 kilometres speed limit in that narrow country road. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm told that these reduced the impact from the LEDs. I knew about LEDs in the early 1980s, and I knew back then they're not good for your eyes. Now, you'll see the new street lights, and they're sore to look at, some of them. There's quite a variation in them. Some of them are not too bad, and some of them are glaring. Now, they'll be on the same series, so it's the same light, the same street, but one or two of them are crazy bright. Now, I have written to all members of Sligo County Council bringing this to
You're
their
wasting your
attention.
fucking time
They
there.
didn't answer. They didn't answer. Nobody answered.
Well, I'll tell you, I made contact with Sligo County Council as well, and I brought it to their attention that the street lighting is actually their property, but apparently it's outsourced now to a national organisation to manage this. Do you know what the name of the app is for monitoring these streetlights?
No.
Death Shore.
Debt,
Shore.
as in DEATH.
They didn't even try and hide it with the spelling.
You're kidding.
I'm
man.
not. You go home and you look up deathshore.app, I think it is. Type in LED street lighting Death Shore. You're bound to get it. And it will show you every LED street light and if it's working or not working.
Well, there's a good one now. If they have designated that the LED lighting is not their property, how can they collect property tax to pay it?
They didn't deny it because I made the point that it is their property. But then they just said that it became
Detured.
more part of a national kind of contractual thing. You know, they danced around it basically.
Who did you get to speak on it?
Oh, like we mentioned it to a few. Like in detail, Councillor Joe Queenan. But besides that, like, I mean, we went up to the council offices during a meeting. We brought up a lot of, at the time it was 5G was kind of the term. And they kind of signed off saying that, like, we'll stop anything until we're sure, we can be sure of the health and safety concerns. Nothing happened, you know. I mean, it rolled out. After that, COVID came, and sure, this all became a small thing, you know. But yeah, I just think these LED streetlights are definitely something to be looking at. And there was articles in the paper with Leo Riker saying that we're bringing broadband using streetlights and all this kind of thing. So I just think it's one of them things that kind of got forgotten about with the whole COVID thing. And just when I saw your meter there today, it kind of sparked an interest again.
Tell everyone there, once again, Diarmuid, where can they purchase one of these meters if they want to go for it?
Well, online, this particular brand is Cornet Microsystems, but I'm sure there's other brands.
Yeah, the Trifield is a pretty good one.
Trifield.
And the one I bought recently, which is like a 2-letter name, like GL Electronics. Or
And what do you
like
call the device, Darren?
It would be an RF meter.
An RF meter.
Yeah, so basically you're reading the radio frequencies through a broad spectrum of frequencies, and what it reports, these things are reporting on the energy of that frequency, like. So
Well, that's everyone there now. Take note of that. An RF meter isn't a bad thing to have in the house.
yeah,
So
the old Trifield is a good, handy, easy to read meter. They give you 2 numbers on it, a peak and then the actual current meter reading. It's the smaller number you're looking at all of the time. Just it's funny the way they designed it, like. But yeah, people should be a lot more aware, I think, and especially now. Now with Wi-Fi, like nearly in every fucking room in the house.
Our house is atrocious with it.
You know,
Because we have thick walls.
yeah.
And I don't know, was it Freike or someone measured it anyways one day and they said that that's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Because what is happening is just like your mobile phone. You know, if you're somewhere with an abundance of signal, your phone actually doesn't produce that much RF because it can bounce to the signal quite handy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
It's when you're actually out of signal, is when your phone actually ramps up and starts really penetrating with this high RF signal. And yeah, people just need to be more aware of it, I think, you know. And yeah, it was just a blast from the past. Just when I saw it on the table, I was like, geez, yeah.
We have to get back into it, and the councillors have no power, but if we pressure them anyway,
Yeah,
it's we could get them to have a vote, send a letter.
yeah.
Well, knowledge is power, and the more prevalent that becomes, the better.
That's it. And remember, like, you see, again, people, they rely on everyone else to be responsible for their safety and their...
Well, let me say that, and there's a radio
You know.
listening to this, and God, you know, and I won't put anyone off asking a question, but you're asking what dosage of things you should get, and
Yeah.
look into it. That's all I'll say. You know, look into these things yourselves, and you know, we're all here sitting at a table this evening because we researched things, we took things that we thought were good for us.
Yeah,
I'll
we
smoke a
question things.
Yeah,
so then
question it. I'm
we
smoking
look
a
into
cigarette
it again.
and fully knowledgeable that these are bad for me, but I've tried to limit my stupidity to one thing. So you should all do the same. Do you know?
Yeah.
Now, on that note, Diarmuid, would you like the last word? What would you say to anyone that's watching this evening? What's the most important thing they can do?
Don't be discouraged. Keep fighting. Keep struggling. Pass the word. Network with your friends and neighbours. The politicians are a terrible shower, but if we put enough pressure on them, enough pressure, and insult them on a regular basis,
They need that.
yes, I think we can whip them kicking and screaming to do something.
Really? You feel that?
If you whip them and insult them, that, you know, they can't go outside the front door without someone getting into their face and saying, what about the LED street lights? What about the mobile phone masts? What about all the dodgy refugees? Come on, politicians, sort it out. I'm not happy. Ring the Dáil, 016183333. Ring them. You got a problem? Ring the fuckers. Who are your local TDs? Find out who they are. Ring them every day of the week. Go to the central checkpoint at the Dáil, 01618333333, and ring them and say, look, I rang you last week, I want this problem solved. No more LED street lights, no more mobile phone masts, no more dodgy refugees.
Thank you, Diarmuid.
I'm so cynical, like, you know, but yeah, I hope you're right.
Love ye.
Good stuff. Good stuff.